All right, good morning and welcome. Thank you for being here on the Thursday morning after the attendee party. You guys win an award for surviving. Did everybody go last night? Show of hands. Good. All right. So today we're going to do a deep dive on some of the new deployment stuff that we've got. We thought that the theme might be more appropriate to have an ocean theme since we're diving today. Just a little Thursday morning, trying to shake things loose a little bit. I'm Tony East. Some of you guys have known me. I've been doing sync for a long time. And this is Carter Green. Carter's going to take us through some of the deeper deployment stuff. Start with a quick feature update on what's going on. Talk about a little bit about fundamentals. And then Carter will talk about how we're evolving some of our deployment capabilities and how we're shifting some of our focus now that we've convinced everyone to deploy, how that has turned into some need to focus on some operational stuff. And then I'll talk about OneDrive and virtual desktop. Is anybody interested in OneDrive and virtual desktop? Yeah, there we go. There's some energy. I love it. I love it. Some good news. You guys have seen some of the news. We'll go into that a little bit more. So we have a bunch of stuff that's happened since Ignite. As we talked a lot about stuff, but we are improving a lot of things along the known folders work. We continue to do a bunch of stuff there. I really wanted to focus on some of the things that were related to the deployment and the operational space. So the known folder work that we're doing is to improve the technical eligibility. So things like cross-volume moving OneNotes. Anybody have some OneNotes to move? Yay, well, Carter's gonna show you some cool stuff, some developments there. Obviously, we shipped Mac Files On-Demand, and that went GA earlier this year. There was some requests for having a per machine install, and I'll go into that in a few minutes. And then we're now supporting things like the UPN name, the UPN change, and site URL change. So that if that happens on your site, sync sort of follows along, and that just works without sort of seamlessly without any interaction from you guys. Later this year, we'll be, like I said, we'll be bringing around some of the OneNote migration stuff for known folders move, the per machine install, and 64-bit client, a fully native 64-bit client, and that's going to let us do additional scaling and a bunch of other cool things. The Office single sign-on means that your users can sign on once, and they'll be signed into both Office and OneDrive, and that'll let you do some better things with some of the deployment there. We have some really cool new smart bandwidth management for your deployments that's using some of the latest Windows bandwidth management technologies. And then, of course, as we look forward to the future, the on-prem VDI story is still something that we're evolving. We have some good news that's coming. How we can provide you even more tools for your known folders deployment as you become more and more dependent on using OneDrive as the way to get all of your users' data into the cloud. And then in the sense of the operational stuff, making sure that you have visibility into the health of your sync deployment, making sure that since you are relying on sync to make sure all that stuff gets up into the cloud, that it's running, that nobody has errors, and all of the things that are going on. So we're starting to get a lot of requests now for some view into the health of your deployment, and we're focusing more on that. So Mac Files On Demand. Anybody using Mac Files On Demand yet? Anybody playing with it? So, the old world of classic sync meant that you had to have as much space on your disk as was in your library or OneDrive. So you were sort of restricted on how much content you could have by how much would fit on your disk. Obviously, the Files On Demand world, when we brought Files On Demand to Windows 10, that changes the world. It's much more like a file share in behavior, so that you can sort of see everything in your world, but you only bring the things that you are going to be interacting with or using to your machine. The first question once we shipped Files On Demand for Windows was, when's it come to Mac? And so we're happy to say that we did bring it last year, and it's now GA and ready for you guys to deploy with your Mojave deployment. it is built in, it is in the kernel, like it is the same implementation from a philosophical perspective. So it's a deep integration with the Mac file system and the core Mac OS. And so the behavior is very, very similar. So you don't have to, you don't have to train users all the same constructs of keeping the file on the device, freeing up space. All those things are equivalent across Windows and Mac. And so again, this is, if you think about if you have 50 users all syncing a team site in the classic world, as each of those users changed the files that they were working on, those files had to fan back out to the other 49 people, which caused a lot of bandwidth usage and resource utilization. Now, if you think about them each working on their own file, the file that they're working on syncs up, but really all that fans out is the metadata, so the new size, the new date and time stamp, and of course any organizational changes to the folder structure that might have happened. But that's a very lightweight transaction, happens really quickly. So the net impact from that fan out as you get to larger and larger team sites it goes way down with files on demand. So we're super excited, and we want you guys to deploy it, and we'd love to hear feedback as you go through. Again, all of this stuff, all of the deployment stuff is set up just like we have, so you can deploy with Casper. All the things that you can do, or the preferences you can set, are the same with the same Mac deployment tools. So we have lots of documentation on that online. Per machine install. So in the past, we typically install in the user profile. So it's under users, local app data, and then it's Microsoft OneDrive. And the reason that we do that is so that we can automatically update our application. Keeping that application updated and in sync with our service is super important. It allows us to continue to iterate and improve reliability without any interaction. It doesn't require elevation, and there's a bunch of good things. There's a couple scenarios where it's less good. One is on a machine that's shared by many users. So if you think about a bunch of line workers, that maybe 30 to 50 people signing into the machine, every time, when we ship an update, that means that everybody who signs into that machine has to go through the update process and take that. It's not very long, but it starts to impact. The second scenario is similar in the multi-user case. It's for the virtual desktop scenario. And so if you think about that scenario, you tend to have lots of users signing on at the same time to a server machine. And what we found was when the shift started and you had 64 people signing into a single machine, all of them trying to download and install the update at the same time to their individual user profiles, you ended up in a situation with a lot of resource utilization, which wasn't good. So now, with per machine, that gets installed in the sort of program, in the standard program files x86 folder, and it's now a single install. You still run one instance of the OneDrive XE process per account per user, but it's sourced from a single place. So now, once that's updated, and it will still automatically update unless you're in the enterprise ring, and you're managing the updates. But it will still, once it updates for one user, then users 2 through N all have the same, have the new version and all have the same version. So if you are in that sort of multi-user per machine environment, and obviously this is our recommendation for the new the Windows Virtual Desktop Service as well. So we've evolved this. It's in preview still, but we're getting super close. To deploy it, all you have to do is run our setup with the parameter, and it actually converts it from the per user install to the per machine install. So we let you easily transition. So there's not a lot of we handle all the cleanup and making sure that everything goes from there. So that if you're running there is a third scenario. If you're running in a lockdown environment where regulatory, like some regulatory concerns or some other world in which you are not allowed to run executables from the user profile, this is another option for you. We heard some feedback from some financial institutions that was something that they didn't want to allow their users to execute anything from the user profile. Quick word on fundamentals. We'll get into the deployment stuff in a second. But as you know, sync remains, sync is becoming more and more a core part of your operation and of the OneDrive story. So we really approach sync in 4 ways, with 4 pillars. 1, performance. If you think back when we first launched our new sync client, we were probably the slowest in the industry. And now we've passed a bunch of our competitors, and we're nipping at the heels as we continue to make progress. And so this involves work in the entire stack, all the way from our SQL Server backend and storage stuff, all the way through to obviously the sync client. And so actually, this guy right up here named Andre, and he spends a lot of time helping make this better. And things like the differential sync that we announced will help that perceived performance even more. So we're continuing to invest there. Scalability. If you guys remember way back when we first started, the Groove client, the maximum number of files you could have in a shared library was 5,000, and you could have 20,000 in your OneDrive. And now we're scaling past hundreds of thousands, and we'll continue to allow you to grow. Which is so important as you start to move all files, and as OneDrive no longer is sort of a thumb drive, but it's really the central, your documents, desktop, and pictures, as well as all of the data you have in your enterprise. It's super important that we continue to scale to those enormous libraries. Obviously, sync has to run all the time. It has to recover. It has to make sure that nothing goes bad. And so we're continuing to monitor and redefine what health is. Gaia, one of our fellow PMs, gave a great talk yesterday about sort of going more into depth on some of the work that we're doing here. But I just want to make you guys aware that we hold ourselves to an incredibly high bar, and we not only do we watch for things via all of our telemetry, we actually, when we hear about something or something comes in, we want to make sure that our telemetry would have caught it. So we sometimes get reports and we go, yep, our telemetry would have told us about this. And sometimes we find out that, hey, you know what, there's a hole in our telemetry. And so we have a system that actually systematically catches any of those cases so that we can add in the telemetry so we lower the number of blind spots we might have. And basically, we also want to make sure that we're enterprise ready. So that means make sure we have the deployment tools that you guys need to get your deployment done, as well as the operational insights to make sure that your sync environment is healthy. So with that, we just want to delight everybody. We want to make you guys happy. We want to make sure that OneDrive Sync is the best sync in the industry, and that it sort of goes away and you don't have to think about it at all. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Carter to talk about the deployment stuff.
Thank you, Tony. For OneDrive deployment, we have learned a lot over this past year, and we have actually been deploying more OneDrive deployments than we ever have with you, our customers. And so today I want to talk about our deployment, and we've talked about it in these 5 steps. As we've learned from you, and we've learned a lot, we've actually want to talk about the evolution of this deployment. And so today I'm introducing, or more deeply focusing on one new step as well as a cyclical process at the end. Our data migration, as you can see when I introduced, there are 2 new data migration points, and we'll go into deep on both of them. But there is also, we don't just think of this as a linear process. We don't end once we've managed or deployed our OneDrive within the workplace. But we actually end in a cyclical motion where we are continuing to engage our workplaces to use OneDrive and to have the benefits of OneDrive, and continuing to manage OneDrive within our workplace. So the the two new stages that I want to talk about today is cloud data migration and local data migration, and we'll get into them as we walk through this whole process linearly. The first is planning. I hope many of you are either in this phase or have done this phase during your deployment of OneDrive. There are three things really that I can sort of encourage you to do here. One is you've all accomplished it. Come to these conferences. Come with questions about your environment. Listen to these talks, this talk specifically that I'm giving you, so that you can learn more about what's new in deployment, as well as the keynotes and things that highlight what OneDrive has to offer. The second is you can't always come to these conferences every week, or you can't always go and talk with us, the engineers at the booth. But you can use Fast Track. As consultants, they operate very well, and they are very knowledgeable in what's new and how to tweak your environment and your workplace for migration. And so the second point would be Fast Track. And the third is go online. This is a link, docs.microsoft.com/OneDrive. You can come here. We have a lot of different guides here for small and medium business, as well as all the way up to enterprise, of sort of what are the steps of planning that you should take and how you can sort of think about it as you go through. Continuing through this process, each one of these phases has an element of planning, and I hope to cover some of that in each one of these phases. So planning is not just at the beginning, it's all throughout the process. For cloud data migration, we think of it as three processes or three ways to accomplish it. The first one would be a self-service option with using the SharePoint migration tool. The second would be using Fast Track and get the data benefits that they have there with their service. And the third would be partner-led migration solutions, which are more custom and bespoke solutions for complex scenarios and to really tackle the complexity within specific environments that need it. As I focus in on the first two, I want to call out that for SharePoint migration tool, it supports on-prem file shares, so local and network file shares, being able to migrate those, as well as SharePoint Server 2013, being able to migrate that to SharePoint Online. For Fast Track, it works with file shares. They also, as you're looking to get off your competitors, or get off our competitors, they have full solutions to migrate that data into OneDrive. As we look at the next phase for configuring the sync client, I actually want to skip ahead a little bit so that I can give correct focus to the next data migration phase. I promise I will come back to this phase in detail, and we'll talk through what's new for configuring OneDrive. But I like to talk about this phase. The local data migration is what we've called over the past year our known folder move. And I'd like to ask a raise of hands, how many people have deployed known folder move within their organization? All right, a handful of you, great. We've recently heard from one of our customers, Cox Automotive, that with known folder move, they said, we don't have to change our team's behavior. They can keep working on their documents in the ways that they're used to. This is a powerful statement saying that bringing known folder move to their environment, they didn't have to change their behavior to work in the cloud. They could continue to use the Windows constructs that they were used to. Known folders, desktop, documents, and pictures are normal folders that we've used on Windows since Windows 7 and maybe even before. And so being able to perform known folder move, but have those folders be cloud powered is extremely useful, and as well it can increase the productivity of your workplace. we wanted to sort of go into deep a little bit more about Gnome Folder and talk about some of the updates that we have here for you. But before that, I just sort of wanted to talk about the benefits that we've seen it as it's been deployed with our customers. We've seen tremendous benefits in now there's no local folders within these. There's no local content within these your workplace devices, but it is actually all protected under the OneDrive service. We've also seen more user engagement as more people have been able to bring in content into OneDrive through their Gnome folders. There's better collaboration. There's better access via the mobile apps. They can access their files that were on their desktop or the files that were in their documents folder via their mobile apps. And so really, it's bringing a cloud-powered desktop to all Windows machines. We have continued with our guidance that via Gnome Folder Move has 2 ways to deploy, also a third way via manual, but 2 ways to deploy via group policy. And that is our opt-in or our prompt. And so if you set this configuration, it actually prompts the wizard for your employees, and they can then go through and manually click through and enroll in Gnome Folder Move. It also provides an education moment to them to allow them to sort of see that your IT department wants you to back up your important folders and sort of give them a view into what is happening. And so that is via the opt-in configuration. The silent policy that can be set performs the Gnome Folder Move silently without the end user knowing. And so you will move their folders into OneDrive and protect the content, but they won't be aware of it unless they go into File Explorer and they see the placeholders and the cloud content there. And so our guidance has been roll out opt-in first and sort of that phased rollout, give a chance to educate your workplace, and then roll out silent after some time period to really sort of clean up and make sure that everyone moves into Gnome folders. With Gnome Folder Move, and with sort of the popularity of it growing, we've received a lot of questions. A lot of people want to know, before they move their Gnome folders, how much content are they going to move locally up to the cloud? This is part of our local data migration. How much content's going to move? And as they deploy the Gnome folders, did the content get moved? And what policies are being respected and such? And so today, I want to do a demo and show off some of the work that I and my engineering counterparts have been working on. So I uploaded a script last month to GitHub all about Gnome Folder Move, Gnome Folder Move deployment specifically. And if we look through this script really shows us and you might not be able to read this, it's OK. I have a link on the next slide that you'll be able to get to this GitHub repository. But this script really shows us 4 different things. 4 things that it shows us is this device KFM eligible? What is the payload locally on this device under the Gnome folders that would have the potential of moving up to OneDrive? It also shows you, as you deploy KFM, it shows you the status of the Gnome folders. So are they moved yet, or have they not? And what are the GPOs that are respected on this device? So as you roll out this script, it's just a PowerShell script, but it actually runs on each individual machine, and then it outputs a text file. And so I would just recommend putting that text file on some shared library somewhere so that then you can collate and sort of scan all of those text files for all the devices, and then you'll able to sort of sum up and look at the total amount of devices that are eligible for KFM across your workplace, as well as the total payload that you're looking to upload. So with respect to your network, you can understand if you can handle it or if you need a phased approach. The script is a simple PowerShell script. It requires 2 inputs from you, one being your tenant ID, and 2 being the output location. Where would you like to store the file? And then as you walk through it, it goes through and sort of iterates through a few things. I can go ahead and run this. And then I can, on my desktop, which you can't see, but on my desktop, it writes out the script, and I actually get the output file. And I will go back to the demo, I will go back to the presentation so I can show you how to break down that output file. The output file spits out a KFM eligibility true or false flag. So it determines if this device is KFM eligible. It also looks at the payload, like I said, and sort of shows you in bytes just what you're moving up. It also looks at the number of items you'll be moving up. And then as well as you deploy, gives you the KFM gives you the gnome folder status. And so is it moved? Is it in OneDrive? Yes or no? As well as the GPO status. So what configuration has been received. And so on this device, the opt-in wizard had been set, but the silent KFM had not been set for this device. So we hope that giving you this clarity really can help you sort of be in more control of your gnome folder move deployment, as well as give you the, it gives you the flexibility. It is a PowerShell script, so it gives you the flexibility to add more in. If you're looking for more details about your devices, you can go ahead and do this. This is work that we are doing right now via a PowerShell script because it's quick and easy. We are also looking in parallel to integrate this more into the product, and we hope to have more to share with you within the coming year to talk more through this. The other big piece of KFM that I want to talk about is expanding our KFM eligibility. And so we know that we have some scenarios that we block, or we show you this wonderful, we don't block it, we just show you this wonderful red error because we are still working to enable it. The 2 that I want to talk about today is our cross-volume move and our OneNote move. Cross-volume is the scenario where if you mount your OneDrive to a different drive, so let's say your D or your E drive, and your gnome folders remain on your C drive, we today, yesterday, couldn't move that. Over the coming weeks, we are actually unblocking this, and we are updating our client and actually enabling this move. And so if this has been the main blocker of your scenario, you will be relieved in the coming weeks to have this unblocked, and you'll be able to move your gnome folders successfully to OneDrive. The second wonderful error message that we have is for OneNote. If any of you have a notebook, a local notebook, within your gnome folders, we haven't been able to support that. We have been very hard at work, and I think the engineer that's been mainly focused on this is here at the conference, and so he's been at the booth, and he's here for Q&A. But we've been very hard at this with the OneNote engineering team as well. And the thing that we've learned is OneNote is a complex beast. And we are working to make sure that it is not complex for you and that it is seamless and that it'll be, to convert it to a cloud notebook will be a simple process for you. Today, I have more to show on that as well. And so, as I go into the demo, yeah, that worked. I have here a local OneNote. And so I can prove that it's local by looking here. It's just in my documents folder. And just to show the complexity of what some OneNotes can be, if you open up a OneNote notebook, it is not just a OneNote file. It is many files. Every section has its own .1. Every notebook has its own OneTalk2 file, which is a table of contents file. Every notebook has a recycle bin. Some notebooks also have sort of subsections. And so this is a subsection called archive. Under that, once again, more sections, another OneTalk2 file, which is just sort of adds to the complexity of these files. And so with this, I have a simple OneNote for the case of the demo here today. And I am going to, on stage, perform a known folder move. So like I said, this OneNote is located within my documents folder. So if I go in, and today I am just going to move my documents folder. If I go ahead and move that documents folder, no error message. And it has started to back up my files. If I go ahead and close this, I can go ahead and look here. And it's actually now in my documents folder. It is no longer a folder with a bunch of .1s and a OneTalk2 file. It is now just a URL link. And this URL link is my notebook. This is what makes it a cloud notebook. So now if I go back and open my OneNote file, you can't see it because I'm extended, but if I go and, oh, yes. Yes. So now if I go and open up my, there's a Contoso Demos notes, and that is what I moved. As I hover over it, you can see that it is now in my OneDrive Microsoft Corporation folder, and it is under my documents. I can prove more. I can now sync this notebook, and as I go into properties, it shows OneDrive. And so this is no longer a local notebook. This is a cloud notebook hosted on OneDrive, moved through known folder move. Yeah. So as I continue, what I just showed you is a great feat of engineering across multiple teams. And actually, we are still working to make sure that it works seamlessly for all notebooks and for your notebook specifically. I wanted to just walk through real quick so that I can describe what you just saw was a local notebook in the OneNote desktop app, moved via known folder move via the OneDrive sync client up to the cloud to our SharePoint service. And so now there's a sync relationship with this OneNote notebook. But it's still a local notebook. It's sort of still that folder of .1s and OneTalk2 files, and it's not quite a cloud notebook yet. So this is where the sync client comes in and performs its magic, really, and actually stamps a piece of metadata onto this notebook that then makes it cloud ready. Once it's cloud ready, it continues with the sync relationship and makes sure that the cloud aspect of it is also cloud ready. When the SharePoint service understands that they have a cloud-ready notebook, they then work with, or they open up to all OneDrive clients, OneNote clients, the mobile app, the website, the desktop app, even the indexer service that OneNote has. And it will look at this, it will be able to discover and see this cloud notebook, and as it opens it, the conversion is there. And so the OneNote desktop app is actually able to access this notebook. So a lot of great work. This has been very exciting to be able to bring to this conference and sort of show that demo for the first time. Still a lot of work to come, and we hope to have that functionality be able to roll out this year. So going back, thank you for letting me talk about known folder move and sort of that local data migration. I want to go back into sort of our configuration or configurability of OneDrive. and sort of talk about the updates that we have there. One of the first things that I want to talk about are sort of the new features that we have here. And so we know that we can sync team sites via the OneDrive Sync client. And what we're happy to announce today, coming out in the coming weeks, is being able to auto-mount these team sites. And so giving the ability to admins, you, to be able to sync, to automatically configure a team site via a team site ID, which you can grab on the team site online, and then plug that in here. You can tap on Libraries, Show, plug your team site ID as well as the name of the team site, and then configure it so that this can roll out and be deployed to your new or existing OneDrive users. The scenario here really is, as you're looking to deploy Microsoft Teams or groups within your workplace, and you have tight-knit collaborators and tight-knit groups that are working to collaborate together, having their team sites on their box is something that is extremely powerful. They can see their files, they can interact with them locally, they don't have to work with a website. And so being able to come and do this, being able to deploy this for them gives them better access to their collaborating files, as well as gives them local access to that data. The second piece that I want to talk about that Tony had talked about on our overview slide was the smart bandwidth management that we are looking to bring this year as well. This really provides a new and powerful way to manage the sync client's upload and download throughput. And so the graph here is the blue bars are the OneDrive network traffic. And so the OneDrive Sync client has a lot of uploads and downloads as it's syncing and as it's making sure that your files are up to date and synced to the cloud. It takes up network traffic, and we know that it does. But the orange bars here are a third party. So this is user traffic or other different type of network traffic. What the graph is showing is that via this new bandwidth management, the OneDrive Sync client will take up the network bandwidth as much as it needs when it's empty. But if there is user traffic or third-party network traffic that's coming in, we'll go to the background, and we will wait until there is bandwidth, wait until there is free bandwidth and not user traffic to actually start up again and continue our sync process. So this is us sort of taking a step back and understanding smartly when we can use the network and when we can't. And this is powered by Windows Low Extra Delay Background Transfer, their LEDBAT protocol. And this is also something that we'll be rolling out via GPO or also just manual configuration. Within the OneDrive settings, the OneDrive Sync settings app, you can go in under the network tab. And today there is an adjust automatically for uploads. But we will be overriding that once we get to rolling this out and actually enabling it for uploads and downloads. And so look to see that in the coming months. We have been hard at work over this past year to sort of deliver more and more group policy configurations. And so, like I said, with known folders, we have enabled those via group policy. Team site auto mount will be here. The smart bandwidth management will be here. We've also done a lot of work over the past year we got a lot of feedback from you, our customers, sort of talking to us about how the clarity or how these descriptions, what do they actually mean? What does it do when I enable this? And our initial feedback was, well, there's descriptions, it tells you, but we learned that it wasn't clear what we were actually sort of spelling out there in the settings. And so we actually went through with our content writer and actually cleaned up our descriptions and rewrote some of our configurations, so just the text of it, so that it's clear what it's trying to accomplish. We also want to remind you that these configurations ship as often as we ship the sync client. And so just to call out, each one of these configurations come in an ADML and ADMX file. And that ADML and ADMX file ships with our sync client. And so whenever you get a sync client update, you get our most recent configurations. And you can actually access it here via the local app data path, Microsoft OneDrive, and in the ADM folder, you're able to access that. You bring that into your group policies or wherever you need your ADMX file, and you will be able to have the most recent OneDrive configurations. We also did a lot of work over the past year to bring these configurations to tools that you use on a daily basis as management and configuration tools. And so with the latest version of SCCM, we've brought under the compliance settings, we've brought a OneDrive for Business profile in there so that as you are configuring your Windows images, you can set up your KFM, you can set up KFM on by default for those images, and for those Windows images. And so as you go and deploy and use SCCM to create your images, you can set up a OneDrive for Business profile for those images, set up KFM, and then you're off to a good start with SCCM. We're also super happy and super excited to announce integration with Intune, one of our favorite management tools. But we are excited to announce today that coming this summer, you will be able to access all of the OneDrive configuration as all the group policies that we have via the Intune dashboard online. And yeah, go ahead. This is exciting for us to have. We know that it's been asked for. And so this is a list on the left of just all of our OneDrive configurations. This is an example on the right of being able to tap through on that silent move for known folders, being able to enable it, set the tenant ID, and deploy it via Intune. This provides a lot of power, and we're very excited to see what more we can do to sort of help with deployment. We also want to sort of call out that we're not done once we've deployed. So we've gone back and we've talked about migration, we've talked about configuration of the OneDrive Sync client. And just because we've rolled out the OneDrive Sync client to the workplace, we're not done with what we've set out to accomplish by deploying OneDrive. We've now enabled the workplace, all of our workers, with superpowers, but if they don't adopt their superpowers, they're not going to be able to become superheroes. And so, with the user engagement, what we really want to talk about is it's sort of a call to action to you as tech evangelists and as admins within your workplace to encourage your users to adopt OneDrive and to show them the benefits of it. Allow them to download the mobile applications and be able to access their files that they work on anywhere that they are, on their phone or on their tablets or on the web. There's also being able to unlock true collaboration on those files. Via OneDrive now, they can share and really real-time collaborate on files. And so we want to make sure that those types of capabilities are known by your employees. The OneDrive adoption resources are a great resource for you to they're public resources, for you to go out and to learn more about how you can better educate as well as help your employees learn more about OneDrive. There was a whole deep dive of these adoption resources given yesterday in a talk. I'll have the link to that. But really, going to this website, you can find sample videos. You can find frameworks or strategies that you can use to set up OneDrive champions within your workplace, and different methodologies that you can use to educate and to help your workplace adopt OneDrive. And the last piece that I want to talk about is operations and really management of the OneDrive. And so we've evolved the process to really have these two as cyclical, because once you get to this point, you will always continue to sort of manage your OneDrive instance, and you will always continue to sort of engage and to help your users adopt more of OneDrive. As new features come out, as new capabilities, and as new management capabilities come out, you'll continue to look at that. As we've deployed, like I started this section off, as we deployed over this past year, we've deployed more than we ever have of OneDrive within workplaces. And so the more feedback that we've heard is, well, as I've deployed, how is my workplace doing with OneDrive? Do I still have auth errors? Like, I hear about auth errors, but I would like to know what type of authentication or what type of sync errors that I'm having within my workplace. And so this has actually been a growing focus place for us. Over this past year, we focused a lot on deployment, bringing the configuration, bringing the configurability of OneDrive Sync to you and the common tools that you use, really focusing on known folder move. This is becoming our next big growing focus of how we can bring sort of the health and sort of the status of OneDrive to you as an admin within your workplace. My coworker, Gaia, gave a talk yesterday, a quick theater talk, talking about how we've created a health score. And so being able to accomplish that and bring that insight to you in your workplace and understand how sync is looking is something that we're focusing on. And so these are just a list of sort of the common questions that we that we have been hearing, and we're always interested in hearing more from you, and come and talk to us at the booth as you have more questions. So this is deployment as a quick reference. This is our guide that we have been working through, and we hope that it helps you. Now, as we talk about deployment, I want to mention one more thing. January 14th, 2020. I think that's in 236 days. It's coming quick. And I hope all of you know what this date is. Windows 7 end of service. Something that we want you to be aware of is that as this upgrade path happens over the next few months or weeks for you, that OneDrive will be your best friend for file content in this upgrade. There are two processes that we have sort of that we're focusing on where OneDrive and known folder move can help you through this migration process. And so one, in this scenario where you are delivering new Windows 10 machines to your employees, there are two steps really that we recommend that you look at doing. One, ensure that OneDrive is on those Windows 7 machines that the employee already has. Ensure that KFM is deployed and that all the content that they want to continue working with on their Windows 10 box, ensure all of that content is in their known folders. By putting it in their known folders and performing the known folder move, all of that will be brought up to the cloud, and all of it will be there ready for when you give them that new Windows 10 machine. Make sure that auto account config is set up. Make sure that KFM is on by default through SCCM or by Intune. And make sure you configure that Windows 10 image. When you give that new machine to that employee, they'll sign in, and all their content via known folder move will be synced down to their box as cloud placeholders, and they will be able to pick up where they left off with their new Windows 10 machine. The in-place upgrade is a very similar process. There's just one more step to add, and that is make sure that you deploy KFM on that Windows 7 machine. Make sure that before you wipe that Win 7 machine and upgrade to Windows 10, that you ensure that all the sync content is all synced up. And so we are focusing on making this process very clear for you, and we hope that we can help you as you go through this upgrade process to Windows 10. And with that, I want to turn some time over to Tony to talk about the latest or some new Windows deployment stuff.
Thank you, Carter. That was great stuff. Let's hear it for Carter. So VDI, I saw a show of hands earlier how important VDI is to folks. So we hear from more and more customers that at least part of their deployments are using virtual desktop in some way. And so we were super excited late last year to announce the new Windows Virtual Desktop service. How many of you guys heard that announcement, the WVD stuff? We hear some people. So Windows Virtual Desktop is a new service from Microsoft. It's an Azure-hosted service that lets you sort of take a Windows image, your image, and then host it. So you get to sort of pick. It's not just like some vanilla image that we provide you and you get to go. You get to sort of build your image. The cool thing is that there's a new Windows 10 SKU that's called EVD, and I'll go into a little more details about what that's about. But that's a real game changer in the VDI space. And of course, because it's based on Azure, it's scalable, and it basically is easy to scale up to your needs really quickly and sort of use what you need when you need it. And then the other big piece is we've spent a lot of years with sort of coexisting in the Office 365 world. We spent a lot of years coexisting with VDI, sort of acknowledging, oh yes, some of our customers use VDI, but a lot of stuff didn't work very well. OneDrive didn't work. Cache mode exchange didn't really work. Search sort of didn't work. Like there's a bunch of things that were just sort of wonky, but people sort of slogged through making it work. And so we spent a lot of time with within Office 365 and the Windows Server team just sort of having these conversations about how important this was to our customers and that we really, really needed to step up and make Office 365 really, really work. And so this service gives us a chance to affinitize these virtual desktop locations with some of the Office 365 services. And so you can actually get a solution that's super, super quick and super great. So let's talk really quick about EVD. I only have about 5 minutes, so I'm going to go a little bit fast. Basically, in the past, if you self-hosted your VDI environment, you were running a version of Windows Server if you wanted a multi-user scalable, sort of the non-persistent mode, so you could have lots of users coming into one machine. And so they got the server interface, which is kind of 1995, and it's just not great. Now, if you could run Windows 10 if you wanted to, but you only got one user per VM, and that was super expensive, didn't really scale. So the Windows team came along and said, hey, what if we sort of took the best of both worlds? And so they put a Windows 10 in the front and basically the multi-user capabilities in the back. And so now there's this SKU that's available through the WVD service called Windows 10 EVD. So that means that your users who pop into that are using this are getting the normal Windows 10 user experience, and it's pretty powerful. So, quick funny story. So when I was we sort of fixed sync, and everyone's saying, hey, VDI, we got to get VDI, and it wasn't working. I get an email from a PM who had just started Microsoft 6 months before, and she says, I'm from the VDI team, and we really, we have a lot of customers who really want OneDrive to work. And I said, yeah, I know, because they yell at me all the time, and I hear from them all the time. And she said, well, I found a thing that I've seen it work. And I said, what do you mean you've seen it work? And she said, no, I've seen it work, and Exchange work, or Outlook and Exchange work. It's amazing. And I said, tell me more. So anyway, so she comes and tells me about this company called FS Logic and arranges a demo from the CEO of this company. And I'm sitting there watching sync working in VDI, and I'm thinking, this is like black magic. I don't even know what you guys are doing, but it's crazy. So I'm telling him to do things that I know will break, and they're not breaking. And I'm like, wow, you guys are really you really have something here. And so basically for the next 12 months, I spent all of my time trying to convince some of the executives around the company to buy this company. And so finally, I wasn't the only one who sort of prevailed here. The VDI team, obviously, there's a bunch of technology there. So we are happy to say that we bought FS Logics and the folks that created this amazing tech. So that allows basically OneDrive, OneDrive Exchange, Search, and a bunch of other really cool things to happen. So I'm going to give you a demo, but in a way I already have been, because this whole demo has been running inside of a virtual desktop. Let's go back. If I pop out of here, you can see that I am running and this is on my iPad. But it's, yeah, right? So I have this is my Windows 10 desktop. And I spend more and more time every week. I started with Virtual Tuesdays, and now I spend 2 or 3 days a week in this environment, because it's got CorpNet access, it's got all of my apps, it's got my OneDrive, and I don't have to carry around a big heavy laptop. So anyway, back to the show. Really quickly, basically, what they've done is they've created a filter driver one layer below our Files On-Demand filter drivers. So these are kernel basically the kernel drivers. And they make the user profile disk appear to be a local disk and feed to us disk chain notifications, some other things that we're missing. And so they basically have worked closely with the file system team to make sure that we get all the things we need. So we think we're running basically on a local drive. And so that's sort of the magic that helps this work. And that's that. So thank you guys again for coming. If there's anything you want to ask us, here's the aka.ms SPC ask. So any questions you might have, we don't have very much time for questions, and there's another session right after this. We'd be happy to stick around off stage or right outside the room if there are other questions. Sorry for rushing the end there, but we wanted to squeeze that in.
Also, if you have questions, you can find us at the booth.
Yeah.
We'll be there today.
So, and then lastly, there's some of the other sessions, and I believe there's been some of the other sessions have been recorded, so you'll be able to go back if you haven't seen that. So thanks again for your time this morning, and have a great and safe trip home, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.